Hey garden friends, welcome back. And today we're going to do a Rose Alley tour for the beginning of July, July 7th to be exact. And we'll see what has gone over, what's blooming, and a few ideas for some future plants in there or what is coming up. So let's go ahead and get going on our tour. Welcome to the Rose Alley. And oh, how it's really starting to come into its own here, early July, July 7th. And here is my trumpet vine that I am training into a topiary, not a topiary, what do you say, a standard or a tree form. I've got to get my wire. It's about getting ready to bloom, and that's when it really gets a little hairy looking. So that's why I want to get the wire, it's copper wire, and kind of form it so it makes it a little tidier. Down below, I'll cut away these canes that are down here because I don't want them. I just want the trunk. And so here is my Abraham Darby rose. I need to prune it back some. The early blooms look like some of them bald, etc. But it will rebloom if I give it a good hard prune. My first arbor in here is got this beautiful clematis. This is Belle of Walking. And it just keeps going up and it will keep blooming for me for quite some time. It already has been blooming for quite some time. And then my Tess rose over here. Tess d'Iberville, David Austin rose. Now I had shared when I dug these up out of the landscape and put them into these wine barrels because the gophers were eating them and they weren't doing very well, and they are just doing great. I have one on the other side. It's a little obscured. I've been moving raised beds from the front garden, the entrance garden. I've totally revamped that. But yeah, this other one's doing well too. The wire mesh I will move to the very back garden. The back hillside where usually I don't have much, that's where I'm going to move a bunch of raised beds. But over here on this area, my Roseanne hardy geranium is coming into bloom, doing beautifully. That will bloom all the rest of the summer. And down this side, look at this rose. This is that ground cover rose that I trained up an obelisk in the front. And I put this little obelisk here. And for this one, because I had this one in the ground and it had a tendency to just go crazy everywhere, and I wanted it up on this. It makes a really pretty rose, climbing rose up the little obelisk. My Jupiter's beard has been doing gorgeous. That's one plant in there and it just goes crazy. Some of it's starting to go to seed. I will prune that back. For me, it blooms all summer long, so don't be afraid to plant it. Some people it only blooms like in spring, but for me, and I think it may be our very cool summer nights, it blooms continually through summer, so perfect. I have another division I have taken of this up above, and then I was mentioning on my Instagram that I was trying to get the white, and I'd been unsuccessful, and I had a garden friend bring me one from a local nursery, which is so kind. I was thrilled. The black-eyed Susans are starting. Now this one, these are getting really tall because I've really added irrigation to this bed, and normally they bloom shorter, but getting that extra water causes them to get tall, and I have to be careful that they don't flop because when they get all that extra water. This is my nearly wild rose, and I was trying to look, if I seemed a little distracted, for rose weevil on it, and I see a couple of them might be on it. That is my only really bad pest with my roses, and they hatch when it gets warm and they just devastate the roses. I need to trim back all the buds that are have the little holes in them because that's where they lay their eggs. This is my peony, my bowl of beauty, and it has just been stellar. Look at how massive that is. Now I'm hoping all my other peonies will get just as large, and I wanted it to be kind of like a green hedge all along this edge of the bed, the street side. Peonies do fabulous in our climate. There's peonies in this neighborhood that have been here for 50 years or more, actually. So a delphinium coming up. Now you see my iris still all need to be deadheaded. I have waited to do that because I wanted to know their locations better. If I deadhead them, they kind of get obscured in the landscape, and I want to divide them, but I want to be able to look at my pictures and my videos and know what colors are where. So this side, the feverfew I've just let go, do its thing. The rose campion here is the same. It fills in for itself. So I like plants that reseed because they kind of fill in where I'm not planting things, and it's cheap because they're free. Look at this Nepeta. It's massive. It's got to be 4 feet tall. This is white. It has never gotten this big before, but I've only had, this is like the second or third year, so it's getting established. I've had to prune it back away from the inside garden beds because it was overtaking everything, but wow, it is just a monster. So as I see its habits, etc., I will decide on how I'll keep it. I do love it, but it seems to be a little aggressive. So this area right down here, I have put in some irrigation here, and I'm just getting some things planted. I have yarrow and salvia in here, the big purple one. I planted elephant ear in here. I had bear's breech in here, and it didn't make it through the winter. It was supposed to be hardy in my zone, but it was an especially rough winter, and I kind of should lean towards more zone 7 than zone 8 plants because of our winter, even though I'm considered a zone 8. My lilacs are doing great. Feverfew is taking over this area. This bed down here is, I've been throwing garden debris in it. I am going to plant, I'm going to seed some zinnias and other cut flowers, and they'll be fine. I'll get them by the end of the season, or I should say it's September, which is fine with me because I have plants everywhere. So let's look up. This is the street side of the Rose Alley. And then let's go up and start at the entrance and walk the path. I failed to show you, this is tiny monster hardy geranium, and you can see how it's made a wonderful ground cover. Now this is actually taller, but it's flopped down, which is fine by me. And that just keeps this area next to the road weed free. Now back here, I prune it back because I don't want it going into the garden bed because it can take over. Look at my daisies. These are my crazy daisies. Getting ready to bloom. Gorgeous. The foxgloves are finishing up. I'll let some go reseed, and others I'm just pulling out as they're done blooming. They seed themselves, so it's no worry just to pull them out. I have some apricot ones that I have started from seed inside, and I need to get those planted out too. They're struggling now because it's taking me too long to get things in the ground. So now we're back at the entrance to the Rose Alley, and I can't wait to show you some of the things in here. Doing so gorgeous. Look at this bell of walking. Bell of walking. Clematis. This is what I hoped all of the clematis do in the garden. There is a rose down here. See, there's the rose that's hopefully getting started. I'm hoping the gophers are leaving it alone. I don't know if that one has a cage or not. But here's these trellises that my husband and I put up for the climbing roses next to the porch. And look at the bell of walking is also climbing that. But this is Dreamweaver rose, and it will bloom all summer long for me. And I need to give it a little bit of a deadhead. Make sure, I got to check my irrigation, make sure it's all doing well. Slowly getting irrigation everywhere. Abraham Darby again. Back there, some yarrow. This is a pretty pink yarrow, at least it was last year unless it switched on me. So black-eyed Susans, doing good. Now I probably will have to support my black-eyed Susans. They start to lean because they get excess water. Some of the plants in here need more water, therefore I have irrigation to them, but the black-eyed Susans, it makes them get so tall they flop. So I know that ahead of time, and I just plan on supporting them. Look at that yarrow back there. Isn't that a beautiful color? And some trendy weeds there that I need to get in there and take care of. Down there I have an Agastache, however people pronounce it. I think you know what I mean. The cat's pajamas Nepeta is still doing beautifully. It's getting time to kind of prune it back, therefore to get a reflush of pretty blooms. Now this little Veronica, I do believe, is gorgeous, and I can't remember the name. It probably was one of my sale rack rescues. I get a lot of those, and then I plop them in wherever I find a little spot. I shouldn't say a lot. Whenever I find one I know will do well in my garden, I do. So here's one of the irises that I'm definitely moving. It's so close to the path. And when I look at my pictures, I'll know what color it is and where I wish to place it. It probably needs to be divided. Now this rose, I didn't do my milk spray on, and look at the powdery mildew. This is New Dawn. Yeah, the new growth is even getting some powdery mildew, so I need to get the milk spray out and treat it. My Bosco Bell rose needs a good deadheading, and then it will be just fine indeed. Tess is coming over onto this arbor, and I think I'm gonna just let it, I'll train it up, and it'll just provide color on that arbor as well. So the Quicksilver rose, here's Quicksilver, it's starting to put on new growth. I was watching closely because I didn't see new growth. I put it in a cage, and I wasn't sure how well, not a tomato cage, gopher cage. But the mesh, the wire seems so tight. I was wondering how them roots would get through it. The big tap root. So over here I have Crocosmias coming up. The lupin's going to seed. And down in here I have some delphiniums that I started from seed. I have this pot of lilies here. Sorry if it's kind of that. I just stuck in there to see if it would do well, and I need to get it in the ground. But there's a delphinium starting to come up there too. These are asters. They will both bloom later in the season. Also probably have to support those. But a lot of deadheading needs to go on in here, and the dividing of the iris. So I'm trying to put in or find pops of color to put in place of those. So here's more foxglove. I love these foxgloves. Look at that. I think these are called Pam's Choice. The ones with the real bright pink fuchsia on with the white. What is this? I got a often have bumblebees that come and spend the night in my foxgloves. I don't have as many bumblebees this year as I usually do. A late blooming iris, which is very welcome, beautiful color. The Sweet Williams I put in, started from seed, and I'm going to let these go to seed. These are kind of flopping around, but they will spread. And there is one of my roses down there, my new Rambler roses. This one I think is Rural England. Doing a-okay. It looks like I need to deadhead it a bit. The daisies. How gorgeous. This one has a very interesting petal shape. You see how it gets real tiny towards the center? And I have another one down beside the Primrose Cottage that gets these very long petals. I have some that have short stubby petals, just a variety of Shasta daisies. Now this barrel, I am thinking I'm going to go ahead and top it up. I was going to remove it from here, but now that everything's blooming, I really can't do it without damaging plants. So I'm thinking I'm going to fill it up with some potting soil and maybe seed some zinnias or find something at the garden center that is an annual. And then once fall hits and a freeze comes, we can move it. Nothing will overwinter here because the gutter above leaks right into it and everything drowns that is in that barrel. Yes, we've tried to get the gutter fixed, and we will eventually just replace them. But until then, I make do. This is Phyllis. Phyllis, the hardy geranium, and I was going to put a little support around it so it didn't sprawl all over and it stayed more upright and like a bush rather than a big flop. But I didn't get to it, and I still can, and I'll share how I do that in another video. But my Zephyrine drone had put on its first flush of blooms. It will rebloom. I got to get in there and prune it back. I have debated putting another rose. I think there's another rose in there already that would carry on the bloom when Zephyrine kind of slows down in the heat of summer. But I haven't gotten to that yet. So, beautiful Japanese maple grew from seed in the corner. Now this yarrow, I'm just loving. It is a petite one. It stays short like this, and it will bloom the rest of summer as long as I keep it deadheaded. Now look at this rose. This was supposed to be a fuchsia pink, and it is not. Super Dorothy. This is supposed to be Super Dorothy. That's not what I saw in the catalog. So either I made a mistake or I got sent the wrong rose, but I will write to the company and find out. So we came down the run side. I'm not finished. I get ahead of myself. So along here, more iris that need to be thinned out, and then I can plant something along here that has color, though there is a yarrow down there. This rose I set here, this is Sexy Rexy, another sleeping bumblebee. I just set it in its pot to see if I liked it here, and I may put it in the ground here, but just get a load of this. This is my Warsaw Nike clematis. This thing never fails to put on a gorgeous bloom for me. This will bloom for a long, long time. I just posted how I prune back my clematis to get rebloom. You can go back and see that. It's pretty easy. Now it depends on the type, if you can get them to rebloom or not. Here's an echinacea that has been left alone by the gophers. It may get eaten. It is not in a cage. Here is my pistachio clematis just starting. It's a beautiful white. And my beautiful Grandpa Newt rose. So this is one side. You could hear my fountain, I think. The birds, the hummingbirds were bathing in it this morning. I tried to get a video and they zoomed off. But here's some monkshood. This is beautiful purple and white. Now let's go back up. This is my Primrose Cottage patio area, which it needs a lot of work. The violas have taken over. I need to pull them out. And this is my Queen of Sweden, David Austin rose. And look how beautiful it's doing. I had to dig it up this spring because the gophers were eating it where it was at. I put it in the pot, and then I did this. I'm trying out electroculture. I don't know if you've heard about it, but that is a piece of copper wire around a bamboo. And the electroculture is supposed to be a great way to, you don't need to fertilize, there's so many things you don't need to do. But I've been pleased, very pleased with the potted plants that I have put these next to. So I'm testing it out, and I will write all about it when I get a chance. So my dianthus along here are doing gorgeous. Look at all these bumblebees on this one. This foxglove, there's one on the leaf, then there's two in the flowers. Hopefully that's zooming in pretty. So along here, I just planted my white wave petunias. And I just now have been putting stuff in here. So I will mulch and cover up the irrigation pipe, but I have been testing it out. I just planted this Salmon Sunblaze little miniature rose that's been in a pot. And this Veronica has been doing gorgeous. It's been a bee magnet. Right there, I was in there doing something and I snapped off a piece at the base, and it had roots on it, so I popped it into a pot, and it will hopefully root. Well, it did have roots, but continue to grow, and then I'll have another one of those. It's getting close to time to deadhead a bunch of it, and then it will reflush. Oh, another sleeping bumblebee. Now this foxglove is a beautiful creamy color. So this is kind of a creamy yellow. And then you see this one is much whiter. So I'm just loving that. I want to make sure and let this creamy one seed. And I've already had to pull out a bunch of seeds down here because I didn't want them along this edge because it would just kind of hide all the shorter growing plants. So I try to keep things shorter along here. So I'm just finishing up. Well, I've had a video on how I kind of keep this bullylamium from overtaking everything. And it's pretty simple. And I'll link to that when I get a chance. Down here, my Albertine rose, I hadn't remembered how beautifully it performs. Now it's just about done, and that will be it, because it's a once blooming rose. But once it climbs this arbor, it will be one of the first roses to bloom in the spring. And that is what I wanted it for, and it blooms so pretty. More Sweet Williams, look at that color. And next to the white, I know that these will cross-pollinate, and then when it reseeds, I'll get more colors. Another Veronica, this was another one of those bargain basement buys, and I just popped it in here. This one's supposed to stay shorter. And this one's a little bit bluer than the one behind. The one behind is a little purple, more purple. This little hardy geranium has gray foliage and the prettiest little fuchsia flowers. I bought it for the foliage mostly, and it's supposed to stay shorter. So far I'm pleased. Now here is my Jubilee Celebration David Austin rose. Now if you want a David Austin rose that blooms all summer long, this one is it. This one is never without blooms. It does need support because it puts on such tall canes that are not super sturdy. And I see a rose weevil, I have to go get it. Sorry for the interruption, but I've got to get them when I see them. Anyways, so this one is just a true stellar performer. Now I'm going to figure out a better way. I have a little support underneath there. You can see that little cage thing, but I think I'm gonna find something, maybe a nice pretty shepherd's hook or something to put around it, and then I can support it in different areas as needed. But it just puts on the show all summer long. See, now that cane, this cane here has got pretty strong upright habit. So that one is great. Now I love this darker color of foxglove. It's another one I'm going to let reseed. Of course, it has its little tenant there for the evening. Now over here is my love song rose, and that is plum perfect. It looks like the petals got a little scorched. It was very, very cool, and then it got super hot, and now it's cooled back down again. So I'll just deadhead those off, and that one, plum perfect, reblooms really quickly. So here's another Veronica down here hiding beneath the rose. I think it's perfect. That one stays nice and short. Here's another one back here that's doing well. This one is called Bushy Boy. This one I got from Annie's Annuals, and it's supposed to bloom super prolifically all summer long. It's brand new, so I'm pleased that I got that. And I like that the blue or the purple is it's a little bit more lavender than the one in front. So perfect, perfect, perfect. So this angle, this is kind of a bare spot. I have some lilies in there. Looks like they're not getting watered well enough, so I need to adjust my irrigation for that. Heleniums, this is my first, well, last year I had them in. This year they should be really beautiful. They're like a real vibrant orange. And I think against all the lavender and pinks in here, that will be gorgeous. So back in there, I have some other things growing. Well, let me see, I've got some yarrow, etc. But that's a nice bare spot that I can plop a pretty plant, or even put an obelisk for another rose to climb up, because this is the Rose Alley. So here is, I'm hoping this is my tomato soup echinacea. Now this is not one you can grow from seed. But I've had it for a long, long time. So far, the gophers have left it alone. I can only hope they continue to do so because it is not in a cage. So down here is my Gertrude Jekyll David Austin Rose. It has been blooming beautifully. You can see where I deadheaded it there. Just gorgeous. And it will continue to get better and better. Now this, I'll show you a picture of the bloom. This is it's not tie-dye, what was it? Oh, Milky Way Morning Glory. It has the most beautiful blue and white striated flowers, and it just adds a pretty pop of color here before things get started. Like, I don't have a clematis yet to go with these two roses, so that's something I will consider. I think I have some in my wait list at Brushwood Nurseries. They sell out quickly of certain varieties, or, you know, just any variety that they promote, because they're just gorgeous. So here is some more cat's pajamas. I think this is cat's pajamas. Nepeta. I'm getting started on this side because I want both sides to be lined with them. Now this is a Chilean jasmine, and it's supposed to be 10 to 15 foot vine, big fragrant white blooms, sun part shade, so it's a perfect spot for it. I just put in another clematis down here, and that one's Princess Kate. I'm hoping it takes off. I lost one already, so I don't know if Princess Kate is particularly sensitive or what. But I have a daisy coming up in here, one daisy. Seems the gophers leave the daisies and black-eyed Susans alone. So I do try to intersperse them through here. So when they suck down my other plants that they do love, then I still have some color. Let's go down along the Primrose Cottage side. I'm trying to get this video done before the neighbors really start their hammer and nailing, which can be quite noisy. This clematis started off great, and then all of a sudden I saw it dying back, and it wasn't getting proper water for a newly planted plant. So it's recovering, thank goodness. I thought for sure I had lost it. So here, let's go along here. This rose, I'm going to support it on this, but at first I need to remove some iris here because it's kind of blocking the lattice from getting stuck down into the ground well. But this rose will be trained up, this lattice. Over here's wine barrels. This one has a Japanese maple in it that's doing well. Looks like I need to spray off some spider mites. Another, this is one of my Roseanne geraniums I took a cutting from, not a cutting, but a division. I have a video on how to divide hardy geraniums, and I plopped it here because it's a very vigorous plant and it's great filler, blooms all summer. A lot of foxgloves in here that I need to go ahead and pull up, and I need to divide this iris here. This is kind of an area that is, I wouldn't say neglected, but I don't pay a whole lot of attention to, so whatever goes in here really thrives on its own. So here's some Monarda. I think this is either my red Monarda, which is a kind of a raspberry red, or my purple rooster. I don't know yet until it blooms. And this rose, this is Ambridge. This is a David Austin rose. But look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? So here's the hole down here that seems to be gopher central. I don't know, that area keeps caving in. Unless that was where a tree was. I don't know. So, oh, here's another black-eyed Susan. This rose, I need to give it a good hard prune, make sure there's no weevils on it. Looks like it had a lot of weevil damage, so as soon as I get those cleaned up and off of there, the sooner it will bloom really pretty. This daisy's gorgeous. I can't wait for it to fill in. That's the one with the big, long petals. So, oops, see, they're starting to work. It's time to end my video. But look at the rose campion. I love letting it fill in areas because such bright fuchsia colors. And I can get it to rebloom. When the majority of these flowers are starting to go to seed, I just whack it back with some big old shears, and it will reflush. Look at there. Look at that foxglove. I love the pinky color with the white creamy center. Alrighty, so that is the Rose Alley in progress, early July, and how it's looking right now. I'm so glad you guys joined me here for this. Hope I didn't bore you to tears with all the little flowers. Oh, wait a minute, one more thing I need to show you. Look at these. Oh, there's Kitty. But this is erodium. These are heron's bell, but it makes a beautiful ground cover. It fills in. It's rather drought tolerant. And look, that's the pink one. And over there's another pink one. Just, I love it. Love it, love it. And not the oxalis, but the other ground cover in here is Corsican mint, which is really scented when you step on it. Just a really pretty scent. This area is going to get some attention, so it will be tidied up soon. I just take it one day at a time, enjoy getting each area cleaned up, tidied, planted, etc. I'm never in a rush, and it's never done. I hope to see you in my next video, where I will have another tour of one of my gardens or some other kind of helpful tip.